too. I'm the mom who knows nada. My name is Brianna. This is the Mama Knows Nada podcast. And rolling into 2022, we have a new theme and bringing in some experts and professionals to talk about how you, new moms, or any mom or dad in particular, can stay true in this new year to whatever it is you have set in front of you. So today's discussion is with Jessica Gillan of Bellies, Boobs, Babies, and Bliss here in Florida. Yeah, we met her before. She's an incredible doula, but she also has a lot of expertise in lactation consultants and how to help moms recover successfully and stay on track to breastfeeding if that's your goal. So welcome back, Jessica. I'm so excited for this.
Thank you so much for having me back. This is cool. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I love that. What I loved about you just in general and just digging into things is your resources, your expertise. You have so much know-how. And we just talked specifically about doulas before and what they do. But now we want to dive in a little bit more about how doulas, especially doulas like yourself who have that lactation support and that background, can really help moms be successful, whether they've never breastfed before, whether they struggled before. First baby, 12th baby, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Every baby's different, as we know. So we're going to dive in and talk about how a doula support and postpartum can really ignite success. So is there something that moms generally think about postpartum recovery that's off base?
I would say a lot of moms have this idea about postpartum that it's going to be really exhausting and you're going to be so tired. And that, some of that is true, yes, but it doesn't have to be. And that's where getting support comes into play. You really don't have to have this exhausting and overabundance of, I would say, misinformation. Usually from family members that are, I mean, they mean well. So there's just a ton of, like your mom comes over and then you have like your sister that comes over and then you have friends and they all mean well, but sometimes their advice is not for you. And that's where I talk to moms about take it or leave it. You can either take the advice and apply it to your specific family dynamic, or you can say, that's really not for me. So we can dive in a little bit deeper about all of those things, and we'll get into all that. But at the end of the day, I just really tell moms about their postpartum experience that just reach out for help. If you have a question, like no question is a dumb question. Every question is a good question. And it really comes from a place of, I just want to know, is this normal? Is that normal? Things like that. So,
well, and I think that's really important to point out because especially if you have multiple kids, like I talk a lot about how you only have one. But if you are in your second, third, fourth, any mom who has multiple kids or even like multiples, like twins, triplets, whatever, all those personalities are kind of unique and what each child needs is unique. So what worked for baby one might not work for number 5. And after you've gotten so far, you just might need somebody to come at it from a different perspective, which I think is really helpful to have someone like yourself who's also unbiased and just in it for, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? So I think that's really important to mention. How is doula support postpartum different from the prenatal period?
So in the prenatal period, we do a lot of prep work. We're prepping for your birth. We're letting you know what your options are, different birthing locations. We're really birth focused. And what happens at the birth has a huge impact on your postpartum experience. So in a way, we're prepping for the postpartum as well. And your breastfeeding experience, if you choose to breastfeed. A lot of what happens at the birth will dictate the initiation of breastfeeding and how easy that starts off. So with having a birth doula, it's really pregnancy, birth focused with the anticipation of your postpartum. A postpartum doula is, we're already here. You've already had the baby. What can we do to make this all the more easier, but also enjoyable? Like your intro into motherhood doesn't have to be so hard. And, it's okay to ask for help. And having a postpartum doula, it's really having somebody guide you through those first couple days and weeks of being a mom.
I love that. And I think that's, and dad. I think that's really important. I remember like with Declan, he slept every 3 hours. He was a great baby, right? So I was like, you know, every 3 hours, he'd sleep for like 3 hours for like the first 6 months. It was amazing, you know? You know, it gets, I know, right? And sometimes I'm like, I still wake up every 3 hours and he's almost 4. So I don't understand. I wish I would have known that fun fact. But if you have that fortune like I did to have a kid who actually gives you a little like reprieve until they start moving or their needs change or there's like a leap, I found that I actually had time to get things done, you know, like he slept.
Yeah.
So I could do laundry and I could go to the grocery store and I could run errands. But then when he started moving, it was like game over. Can't do anything.
Yeah.
Then I couldn't do anything without a headache.
Now we're really changing the game.
So in terms of that, like, so we prep for the newborn, we've got all the things, we've got the baby out, our birth plan went successfully or unsuccessfully or whatever. And as you mentioned, like that kind of parlays how breastfeeding will work and like what is required for postpartum support. So as a postpartum doula, what do those supports look like?
Well, everybody that is a postpartum doula, they will run their business differently. So it's, again, a personalized approach. We are, as doulas, we are a big ball of Play-Doh, and we will move and groove to become whatever suits the family best. So some families will come to me and say, I just want nights. And so then we do the night support. Some moms say, you know, I just want a couple of hours during the day to take a nap, take a shower, and nobody's bugging me. Totally got it. Like it's okay. Everybody has a different setup in terms of their family dynamics and what they want. So that's the support's going to look different for every family, and what their individual goal set may be.
That's awesome. So that's good to know as well. Now, are you trained? This is kind of like off the cuff. Are doulas trained, or can you be trained to look for things like postpartum anxiety or depression or anything like that in moms?
Yes. So in my postpartum doula training, we did talk a lot about postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. What does that look like? What are the markers? And then also, as a doula, you need to be at the forefront of having those resources available for moms so that you can present her with, hey, I think we have something here, and here is somebody who can help you. I know this person. As a doula, we connect very closely with the providers. Like on my resource list, those people, I know them. And we're all very close. We all work together. We refer clients back and forth. So that's very important as a doula. You have to have your resource list locked in. I have had moms that have experienced postpartum depression. I've seen it firsthand. And in my experience, I know what those markers are. I'm also a survivor myself. I say I'm a survivor rather than, you know, I had postpartum depression. I overcame postpartum depression. I know what my individual markers were. So that gives me a little bit of an edge in terms of experience. I've been on both sides of the fence. I've seen moms have it. I've had it myself. I know what contributed to that. So in that goes back to having a birth doula, knowing those ways and how can we avoid that, that possibility of inviting in postpartum depression. Sometimes it's a huge hormone swap. Like your hormones go up, you have that baby and you crash.
Absolutely.
And then your hormones and your body says like, whoa, like what the heck? Like, you know, I need those vitamins back in my body. So there's also, you know, some moms that have had previous traumas, they are more likely to have postpartum depression. So in talking about that in a safe space, in just being on the lookout, I think that is super helpful as well.
I think that's incredible. And I love that you have that specific kind of training or just insight. And I think it's really important because I think when you're in it, especially as a first time mom, or even if you're not a mom, but you suffer from depression or any kind of anxiety, sometimes when you're in it, it's kind of hard to like acknowledge behaviors yourself, you know?
Yep.
Cause we're conditioned to think we're fine. We're conditioned to think we're capable. And it's not that we're not capable, and it's not that we're not fine. Yes. It's that there's moments of intensity, and there's moments of grief or loss or frustration or the million emotions you experience as a human in general, magnified that by what you're saying with hormones and this new organism that relies on you for literally everything. And it's hard not to feel the pressure. And I love that we're opening up as a society to talk more about that. For me personally, I went to see a therapist before when I found out I was pregnant. There's depression that runs in my family, a lot that's been undiagnosed. I have a lot of trauma in my past childhood. Like, I was very anxious to become a mom, and I was like in an apartment by myself in Dallas. And I was like, I can't be depressed with this kid, And so I was fortunate to take precautions, but I also didn't know about a doula until I was much more into my pregnancy. And then as I was starting to do research, I'm like, okay, well, can doulas actually help you identify a situation that could be not like detrimental, but we all have to go through things and experience our emotions. But help support you through that huge shift. And I love how you talk about the hormones. I think when I was pregnant personally, that was the most hormonal like balance I've ever had in my entire life. So I didn't crash as hard as other women because my hormones were like, oh, I'm finally equal. So let's talk about like post versus prenatal doula packages. Like, for your business, and I know that I'm sure every doula does it differently, do you offer like one scope, like a full package that covers everything from pre to postpartum, or can you like do one and then the other, or how do you have it set up for you?
Separate.
Okay.
Yeah, I do it separate. And typically when I'm doing postpartum support, I'll just say like my last client that I worked with just off the cuff. So she had me come over as they got discharged from the birthing center. I met them at the house. I followed them home, and they wanted like immediate support.
Got it.
She was very nervous about having a new baby, and she had what we call white coat, where being in a hospital setting can really set you off emotionally. And trigger things for you. So she felt that it was best for her to deliver in a birthing center away from the hospital type of vibes, but then have support afterwards, just in case, she's a first time mom. Like, how do we know that this is normal and that is not? So I met them at the house. I made them dinner, popped that in the oven, got her tucked into bed. We got breastfeeding going, and then like I fed her dog.
All the little things.
Little things like that. Like the dog needed to get fed. And I asked her, like, can I unpack your bag? Like, you packed a bag for the birthing center. We only used a little bit of it. Can I unpack your bag? We'll start a load of laundry. Just getting like little things done. And the dad thought like, well, this is really great. I don't have to do any of that. And so he got to jump in bed with mom too. And while they were bonding and baby was breastfeeding, other things in the house got taken care of. So sometimes postpartum support looks like that. Taking care of you, just like an extra body in the household. I have done a lot of postpartum nights. And for moms that have postpartum or they are predispositioned for postpartum depression and anxiety, having those nights taken care of can be a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. That kind of support will look like, I usually come at 9 o'clock.
Wow.
I get mom, I tuck her in, like, you're off duty now. You're off duty. Go to bed, take some magnesium or, whatever your nighttime vitamins are, run a bath, take a shower, smell some lavender, put that in the diffuser, and go get cozy jammies on. I have the baby. You're good. I call it off duty. And then I have the baby. So she will pump right when I get there at 9 o'clock and then go do her nighttime routine. And then she pumps again throughout the night, usually at like 1 or 2. and then pumps, or usually I bring the baby around 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
And that way mom is getting about 3 to 4 hours of solid rest of a block. She pumps for 25, 30 minutes, leaves me the bottles at the top of the stairs. I'll go and get the bottles, and that's my next feed. So we kind of work it out where she'll pump in the middle of the day. That's a bottle for me. And I just go and get bottles out of the fridge, and I'll make bottles throughout the night. She pumps, leaves me the milk, and she gets rest. And then in the morning, she wakes up. She's had good solid rest. And here's your baby, fresh diaper, fresh jammies, and you guys are ready for the day. And sometimes I'll throw in a load of laundry. I'll get her caught up on laundry in the nighttime hours. Just whatever I can do to make that transition a little bit easier. Sometimes I'll turn on the coffee machine for them, get them started on a bowl of oatmeal, like that's ready for you. Nice. Just like little extra things like that, so that during the day, I call it sunshine hours, you are 100% mom mode, and you are rested, and you can enjoy that time with your baby. And then at night, and when we're during the moon hours, you don't have to be so exhausted. You don't have to have that like doom and gloom and dread over you that you're just so stinking tired. I remember personally for my own baby, mind you, I was coming off of having like my first baby. I had an induction. So I had a ton of medication running through my body, and a ton of medication that I was filtering out of my body. And my body took a huge crash, and I was so exhausted. I remember telling my mom, like, is this normal? Because I had done postpartum work before, but it's different when it's your own baby. And I was like, Mom, I'm so tired. My face is numb.
Wow.
And so I've had moms tell me that like, I'm so tired, my face is numb. And that's how I know, like, when you're so tired, your hair hurts, and you're just like, oh, I can't even think. You need the rest. And especially if you've had a medicated birth or you've had a C-section, getting up and out of bed every time a newborn requires, that's going to compromise your healing. If you have a very sore bottom from, having, stitches and things like that from delivery, getting up and out of bed, that's going to compromise your healing. So my personal approach and how I do things is I just want you to heal and rest and recover, so that during the day you can be the best mom, and you can have this experience be an experience of joy, and you can enjoy your newborn stage. Newborn stage is not supposed to be rough and tough, and your face is not. It's supposed to be enjoying this new little life that came to you, that is such a huge blessing, and you get to really enjoy their teeny tiny little squirts, like their little tiny noises, and it's like they're in that little bottle, it's so cute. You can enjoy that. You don't have to dread every single noise, thinking,
oh gosh,
here we go again.
I think that's really important in all those things that you mentioned, because sometimes I think people come like for mom and then they take the baby, but that's not necessarily what mom needs or wants, especially if like you are breastfeeding or your husband wants a little bit more of a connection time, or like a feeding thing, or whatever it is you guys have worked out. People show up for mom and take the baby, but they forget about the million other things that make your house go. And it doesn't matter if you have one kid or, again, 12 kids, like the laundry needs to be done, the dishes need to be done. What about the grocery shopping? What about cooking? Like if you don't have nutrients coming in, you're not going to be able to give anything to your kid. So I like that you're just like, whatever the support is. And if it is a night support and you are owning, owning the care of the child for like that, 6 or 9 hour stretch of time, like there's a set up structure, and it all depends on like what you need. And I feel like I need a doula now. So that comes
like a doula you through these preschool years.
I mean, my kid's in. I tell you what,
man. Like,
I mean, he's too smart for me. I'm screwed, but he's going to outwit me by the time he's in first grade for sure. So I got that going for me. But
both my girls, I'm screwed. Like, they are old. Like, I have one that's an old soul, and she just, I think she is here to teach me a lesson. or 5.
Oh,
like
gosh.
she's on this planet to teach me.
Isn't that fun?
And then I have another one that, like, I have my firecracker, and then I have my water. Like,
oh, wow.
She's definitely a water sign, and she's very peaceful. And she's the one at 2 years old. I'm like losing my in the kitchen, and she's at 2 telling me, Mama, namaste. Just calm down. Everything's gonna be okay. And I'm like, dude, you're only 2. Like, you're putting me in my place, and you're so right. I should be calm down.
Where the hell did you come from?
I don't have to stress about this. Yeah, right.
I tell you what, I think I was doing a mental dump. This is completely off topic. Yesterday, as a writer, I'll just go through things, and I was doing like this mental dump of kids as teachers, and what can we learn from our children? Because I tell you what, my kid is a sponge, and every day he wakes up happy, right? But then he'll come downstairs and start dictating. Don't come too close to me, Daddy. Where's my peanut butter toast? I want oatmeal. Don't blend the smoothie yet. I'm not ready. And you're like, Declan, you're being rude. That's not very kind on how you treat Mommy and Daddy. And so now he's flipped the switch. You're not being very kind to me, Mommy. I'm like,
I'm throwing it right back at you.
What do you mean? All I said was good morning. You know?
Right.
And then I'm looking at that, like, what is it that this kid has that he was given to me that I need to learn from? And you're like,
exactly.
So just for you saying that, that's totally off topic, but I do believe as much as we're gifted the child we need to like direct in the world, we are given the child we need to learn from in life. And that,
absolutely,
that reminder sometimes to me is a really harsh reality.
Yeah.
Oh God.
It was frustrating at the time. You're like, very frustrating at the time.
Especially when you know they're right, because they're so pure. And so what I said, they're so pure of heart and unencumbered by like the world around them that anything, especially like a toddler says, I'd have to say, and again, that's the only place I'm at right now is toddlerdom. So I don't know how far this expands into, but he's so true and centered that whatever he says, even off the cuff, sometimes you're like, oh shit, I gotta pay attention to that. And you're like,
kids are they're very pure, so they come from a place of like they haven't been corrupted yet, if you will.
True. And
so when they tell us things like that, it really is, I think, and you can think I'm crazy, that's fine, you wouldn't be the first, I think it's a message from the divine. That's my personal take on it. That
I like
when
that.
they have these, they're very intuitive.
God, I know.
Very, very intuitive little people.
It's incredible. It's like almost too incredible. And then they grew up and they become complicated adults. and that's why I have this podcast.
Yes.
I think
we're all just trying to navigate.
Amen, aren't we? Oh my gosh. You've answered my questions beautifully, so I can skip over the next couple ones, because all of that just kind of summarizes how a postpartum doula in particular can support you. And I think that's really important to mention that, yes, there's friends and family who can come in and help, but having somebody who's unbiased and really just there for direction, I think could be really helpful. I think sometimes you don't know what to ask for, and people, you know, they're trying to be helpful, but they're doing things that they would want and not necessarily what you need or what you want. And having somebody that you can kind of like direct or inform is very, I think, helpful, especially like for me being so far away from family and stuff, like utilizing a third party is almost like more accessible in a way than like, you know, how much does it cost for people to fly back and forth, you know, pay for a doula.
Exactly.
But
yes. And a lot of my clients, they are here in the area and they don't have family around. So they're seeking somebody that would kind of fill that void, that would fill that role of being your best friend from college that comes over and, you know, takes care of you, but knows you. And a lot of my clients, you know, like they do the night support because their partner has a very big job that he needs to be on his A game. So he can't be getting up in the middle of the night either. Like for example, one of my families, their dad was a surgeon. And so he has surgery starting at 6:30 in the morning. he can't be up all night with a baby. Like, he needs his sleep.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I was going to go into surgery, I would be wanting the doc that had, a full solid 8 hours and a cup of coffee.
Steady hands.
I want him caffeinated and happy and ready to roll. So, some of my families are like that. And then I've also had families that, and being a doula, you center your care for both parties, mom and dad, or mom and dad, whatever the family dynamic may be. The birth partner as well is experiencing a huge shift in their life, and you want to include them, but also hold space for them too. One of the families I worked for, this is just another example, things got a little emergent, and dad was holding in a lot of emotions and feelings, and we often forget that men have emotions and feelings too, and they have things to process. And this dad just completely let it go in front of me and said, I thought she was going to die. Like, I was so scared for my wife. So we did talk about those things too, but I think it's important to add that dads definitely can have postpartum anxieties. They can have, and this dad was over the top, very nervous about the baby and the care that the baby was receiving. And he was projecting his experience in the birth onto the baby.
Ooh, interesting.
And that is something that, as a doula, we're trained to look for that as well. And we talked with the dad. We talked with him about his experiences and kind of smooth things over a little bit, and holding space for him too, because a lot of times we hold the mom, we hold the baby, but this is his birth too. Like, this is his, intro into fatherhood. And we need to honor that as well. And so a lot of times I'll check in with dad and be like, where's your head at? How are you feeling? Are you feeling like you're getting some bonding time? Would you like me to show you, how to wrap the baby so that you can wear baby too? And then take the pup for a walk, and give that time of day to mom to give her a break, but also give time and space for birth partner to bond and connect with their baby as well. So that's really important. And showing that dad kind of like the ropes as well. And then also showing dad too, this is what a good latch looks like, because I'm not going to be here during the day. And if you have breastfeeding questions, mom is going to be having some questions, and she may not remember all of my advice, and hopefully you will. So, and if they have to FaceTime me later and be like, yeah, does this look good? That's okay too.
I love that.
But I do work a lot with the birth partners and dads in showing them what is within the range of normal. How many diapers are we looking at? How do we know if baby's transferring well? Things of that sort. So I really try to work and get dad involved as well. I don't want him feeling like he's getting the short end of the stick because he didn't give birth. So, some dads have said, just like in a birth setting too, where do I fit into all of this? Like, where do I go? Like, it's like everyone's playing double dutch and they're looking for their way in. So it's really important as a postpartum doula, as well as a birth doula, to include that birth partner and give them some empowerment and information and guidance too, so that they can be the best dad or the best birth partner. That they can. I think
that's
too.
So important to highlight. And I feel like people like my husband, and I've mentioned this before, he's very British, so he doesn't talk about anything emotional, like, ever.
Right? Yeah.
He is the archetypal male, I will say, stereotype. And I think he's like what you're talking about. He struggled, and, then talking to my dad about his own experience with 3 kids, like, and then transitioning into a grandfather, he's like, you have to give your husband a break. He's doing what he knows. And sometimes instead of, like you're saying, having someone check in with them, which is really important, because he didn't know how to be a dad. I mean, he knows what his dad did, and he had a great role model. But when that shoe's on the other foot and you're stepping into that role and you don't really know what to do, you revert to what you do know. For my husband, it was like, how do I make more money? How do I provide for my family? And in 2 years, he got 2 job promotions, so he was doing what he knew, and he was doing it well, but that wasn't necessarily what I needed from him at the time. And
Exactly.
And even though it's helped our family immensely, you know, who's going to complain about 2 job promotions, you know?
Yeah.
It's nice, right? That's a first world problem to have. Oh no. But it took him some time to really find his groove with our son, and not that he wasn't holding and bottle feeding and stuff like that. And it was also identifying, like what you're saying, like he didn't have any paternity leave. We can get into parental leave another time, but he didn't have any time off.
Yeah.
So we had to take 5 vacation days, and he was home with me in it was 4 vacation days. Mind you, he's answering work emails the whole time, but that's another story again.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, then the next week he was on a business trip, you know, again, doing what he needed to do to provide for the family, but also me understanding that that's what he needed to do. He didn't do night feedings and we didn't have a doula, and he wasn't like up with me or getting me water because he needed to sleep so he could perform, like you're saying. Like, he's not a surgeon, let's be real, he's not a surgeon, but so he could perform at his ultimate capacity as well, as you know. And the other thing I want to kind of circle back to is just the mental fog that moms have. And and I think it's so important that you're there at the nighttime, in certain cases, or whatever people need. And I think it's so hard. And I've realized it more as my son's gotten older and I haven't slept still, how much you just kind of like coast through at like a subpar level, and how much you forget, like, especially when you're the one who does the majority of the house organization. Like, I mean, a house manager is like a real role, like and that's what moms do, right? The fog, and it's different, and for every woman at different times. And for me, it's very much been these preschool years where you're just like, what the hell is happening? And, oh, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot to pack his lunch. Or, oh, I missed a dentist appointment. Oh, shit. You know, having those blocks of hours of night is like life changing. So let's just, that mental fog and just giving that release from a mom to get that time, I think is really just an important kind of thing to drive home. You know, maybe you have a great baby like I did. Maybe you don't. So that sleep is vital.
And every baby is different. They are these little tiny people with such big needs. And oh my gosh, are they so needy? It is like a nonstop needing something. And this another situation that comes to mind was a mom that called me, kind of a last minute situation. And she was like, I'm falling asleep at a red light.
Oh gosh.
So, I mean, we don't have to do that. Like, we don't have to get to that point and to that level of exhaustion. There are ways. And another question that I get that I always love to answer is, if I hire a postpartum doula, are you going to sleep train my baby? So that when you're gone, I'm still getting this rest. And the answer to that is I instill positive sleep cues for not only mom, but baby as well. So that when I'm not there, everybody is getting the best rest and nobody is falling asleep at the red light. Because that is, that is dangerous.
I love that politically correct answer.
It doesn't have to be so hard.
That's great.
It really doesn't have to be that way, but you know, everybody's family dynamic is different. So it's all about doing what's going to be the best fit for you. And a lot of families are like yours that have a husband that is like, okay, you've had the baby, but like, I got to provide for the family. And, you know, some dads that I've worked with, they have admitted to me that the only parental figure that they had, male parental figure, was their own dad. And maybe their dad, because of, you know, how we were raised in the 80s and 70s and going back even farther, you know, dads were not as plugged in as they are today.
Totally.
So, you know, going back to that, they may not have had an involved parental figure in that regard. So they're kind of like, well, how do I navigate this? And so some of that is just some hand holding and giving them the baton of, here's how you know, like I said, wrap your baby wear, go take the dog for a walk, put the baby in the stroller. Dads can bathe baby, you know, things like that to get them involved. So that mom can have the best days when the sun is up Everybody gets to enjoy.
Amen to that. My husband's still not baby, is on bath duty. He's still on bath duty to this 4 years running.
Yes, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. And it's like their time that they, it's like close the door. It's dad and son time, and they do their own thing, their own routine. And, I've had a lot of dads say at the end of the day, yes, my work is exhausting. And, yes, I have to go out there and support my family, but I truly look forward to that time at the end of the day. In our family dynamic, we did the divide and conquer type of bedtime routine where my husband took one kid, I took the other, and then the next night we switched so that everybody got, the best time with our girls. And so my husband has said to me that his most favorite time of the day is when he's rubbing backs and he gets to talk. What was lunch like? Well, who did you stand next to in the lunch line? Who did you play with at recess? Who did you ride next to on the bus when they rode the bus? But, all of those things, it's a nice little check-in as your kid gets a little bit older. But as a baby, that's a great time to like sing songs and tell the baby about work. And, kids, I don't think we give them enough credit. I talk to my baby as if they were an adult. And I would tell them things about going on in the day and current events and, can you believe this is going on, blah, blah, blah. I used to back when we didn't know about bumbos, but I used to put my daughter in the bumbo. We had a very big island, and I would put her in the center of the island and I would cook. I'm a horrible cook, but I try. And I would talk to her about, okay, mommy's giving it a whirl. Don't judge me. We're going to, put a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Oh, put too much, all of those things. And she was so inquisitive. And that was also an opportunity for my husband to get involved too, because he is the cook in the family. Awesome. And now that is something, as our family has progressed, my daughters love to cook.
Oh, it's so sweet.
And that's their thing. And I'm happily not involved in the kitchen. Hey, I don't mind cleaning up the kitchen. I don't mind doing any of those afterward things, but gosh, I'm not a very good cook. So when I do bring my families a postpartum meal, it is something that somebody else has already made, because I don't think I'd ever get hired again if they wanted me to cook. I mean, I can make you a really good, like peanut butter and jelly, things like that. I'm solid.
Mac and cheese.
But when it comes to making,
out of the box.
I know how to make the best mac and cheese. I know the perfect ratio.
That's a skill.
So when it comes to your postpartum meal, I'm sure you want a little bit better than chicken tenders out of the oven. So
hey, you gotta know your strengths.
I will get.
You gotta know your strengths.
Yes.
Lean into them.
Yeah, I'm a really good slaughterer, not a very good cook. I know my place.
I love that.
Hey y'all, thank you so much for tuning into part 1 with Jessica Gillan of Bellies, Boobs, Babies, and Bliss, and all about how a doula can help you prep for baby and support you in postpartum. Tune in next week when we discuss how she can help you with lactation support.